On today's show, it's Christmas. The Mavs play today, and they've given us gifts as Mavs fans. This is what the Mavericks have done this year. We'll talk about that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Thanks for being in every day or making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. Subscribe to our free newsletter that goes out every day except for Christmas Day. The best news and analysis on the Dallas Mavericks and the NBA straight to your inbox. So subscribe to that. Help keep us the #1 newsletter in all of Locked On. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase, maybe of a ticket to the Christmas Day game. Today's episode, we're getting into the gifts that the Dallas Mavericks have this season. I guess it's gifts they've given Mavs fans or gifts that the Mavericks have themselves. And yeah, all that. So, but we'll get into that. We'll talk about, I think, the full rotation is a gift right now. I think that the West is weaker than expected. That's sort of a gift that I didn't really expect at the beginning of the season. The coach, that's right, the coach. But let's start here. The gift giver to Mavs fans, I think all over, is Nico Harrison, because this Mavericks team a couple years ago was just churning, and it felt like the Luka experiment was, or the Luka era, and the way to play around Luka, and they tried with Kristaps Porzingis with the previous regime and all that. It got to a point where it was in the playoffs, and all of a sudden Tim Hardaway Jr. was their second best player, and you look around and go, what is happening? How did it come to this? And the Mavericks needed an influx of talent. They needed a bunch of guys. They needed guys around Luka. They needed a second star that was going to stay on the court, that was going to be helpful for Luka, that was going to be mature around Luka, that was going to be a second star, like an actual star, an actual all-star, that had experience, that had been there before. They needed all those things. They needed size. They needed rim protection. They needed defenders. They needed shooters. They needed creators. It was like, you look around and you're like, oh my gosh, Luka is lifting this team that has no business being in some of these games or having the record that they did. And it's not like they had no talent, not to disparage all the players that were on there, but for Luka to be an MVP caliber player and to get to the place that he needed to be, and this team needed to be building around him, they needed an influx of talent. Everyone can see that. And the Mavericks make a big change. Mark Cuban makes the change. Donnie Nelson in that regime out. Nico Harrison's regime in. Jason Kidd in with him as well. But I want to start with Nico Harrison because it's a gift for Mavs fans to have a GM that barely misses. A gift. I'm going through them all. I went through his page. You can go to Basketball Reference and look up Nico Harrison and then just look at all the moves he's made. Literally in line, like just every single one of them. And I started to go through. I'm like, all right, what's a miss and what's a hit? And I was trying to be really objective about it. What's a hit and what's a miss? Let's go through the hits first. Those are more fun. The Kyrie trade, massive hit. Gave up 1 first-round pick. Dinwiddie, he's already back for free. Dorian Finney-Smith. That's it. That's all you gave up for Kyrie Irving. He's going to be an all-star this year. Yeah. Great. Huge hit. He took a risk there. We've talked about that. We've gone over that forever. And it paid off in an incredible way because Nico Harrison had the relationship with him. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's worked out as well as it has. Kyrie trade, huge hit. Dereck Lively pick. Took a terrible situation. The team was bad. They kept their pick and they got Dereck Lively. Made a trade in the draft like the Mavs do. They only acquire their best players through trades in the draft. They never just straight up draft them. Dirk, Luka, Dereck Lively. They never just draft them. Brunson, I guess, was an actual draft pick. Dereck Lively, huge hit. Took a risk on him. In the draft process, a lot of draft people had Dereck Lively at 25 or 24. And then he slowly started rising up a little bit. And then even where he got taken was a little bit of a reach to some people. He was a 1-year player at Duke who hadn't played that much, who didn't have outstanding numbers, who had dealt with injuries. And Nico Harrison took that risk in a way. They needed to hit on that pick. They needed to. If they missed on that pick, it would have been detrimental. You look at some of these other teams that have missed on big picks. Look at the Warriors right now. Kuminga's been pretty good, but Moody, James Wiseman was a massive miss for them, and that was number 2 pick. And look at them. They could be in a completely different spot than they are right now. So Lively pick, great hit. The PJ Washington trade, the Daniel Gafford trade, last trade deadline, huge hit. Like, you just can't deny that anymore. I was listening to Locked On Suns recently, and our friends Brendan and Ben Garcia over there were talking about what the Suns need. And Brendan laid out this whole thing. He's like, this Suns team, they need blah, blah, blah. He starts going through. We have all these different kinds of rosters. They need a versatile defending wing that can do a lot of things, and they need another center and a big with size. Oh, the same trades the Mavs just made. What a gift that the Mavs are not on that side of it, that they went star hunting like they did in the past all the time, tried to get 3 stars together, tried to save cap room, dry powder, all that. Instead, Nico Harrison just went out and made the move the Mavs need. The risk paid off with Kyrie, so they had 2 stars already. He inherited Luka, which is obviously a gift to him, but then he got the role players around him. This past offseason, the Klay Thompson trade, I think, was a hit so far. You give up Josh Green, and I don't know, like, I'd rather have Klay Thompson for what he can bring because he's made the Mavs offense elite when he's on the court, and there's still more to unlock there. So maybe that's not finished yet, but I'll count that as a win. The Tim Hardaway Jr. dump for Grimes. We'll get to Tim Hardaway a little bit later, but the fact that he could dump Tim Hardaway Jr.'s contract and get Quentin Grimes back, that's a win. That's a hit to me. Go all the way back to the Kristaps Porzingis trade. He traded him for Dinwiddie, and like, talent-wise, in a vacuum and all that, you look at it and say, that's not a really good trade. Kristaps Porzingis for Davis Bertans and Spencer Dinwiddie, that's probably not a good trade. But the Mavs went to the Western Conference Finals. It's undeniable they played much better after that. So that's a hit to me. It made the team better. That's what these trades are for. Just because the talent level isn't the same or isn't equal, it's not an NBA 2K trade, the team got better. Let's go to some signings. Reggie Bullock, the signing in 2021, huge hit. Great. Signed him, brought him in. Derek Jones Jr., another one. Huge hit. Brought him in for the minimum. That was massive. Dante Exum last year, brought him back from Europe. That was a big hit to me. Najee Marshall this season. Like, he just keeps hitting on these wings over and over again, just in free agency. And then I'll count Jaden Hardy as a hit. 2nd-round pick, and he can play in the NBA. There's a lot of 1st-round picks and 2nd-round picks that can't play in the NBA. Jaden Hardy can at least play in the NBA. He's had good games. He has NBA skills. Now, is he going to be a for sure rotation player on a championship team? That's a high ask, right? But at least he can play in the NBA. That's a hit. 2nd-round pick. And that was Nico Harrison's first draft pick that he made. So hits, like, that's so many hits I just went over. And it's been, 3 years. The misses. The big one to me, I think the worst miss was the JaVale McGee signing. Because you had to stretch and waive him to get off that contract. That was a big miss to me. Now, did Jason Kidd want to bring JaVale McGee in? And my dog is disagreeing with that take. Did Jason Kidd want to bring in JaVale? And is that the reason why they brought him in and all that? Yeah, maybe there's some of that, but let's just call it for what it is. It was a miss. They had to stretch and wave him, so they admitted that it was a miss. The Christian Wood trade. Okay, kind of a miss, but what did you really lose there? Like, you brought him in. He gave you some good minutes. Averaged 16 points for the Mavs. They end up moving on from him, but they lost a 1st-round pick. So you're like, okay, well, they lost that, but that pick turned into Wendell Moore. Who? That right? Okay, so that's kind of a miss, maybe. I don't even know if I count that a miss, actually, now talking through it. The Grant Williams trade. They traded for Grant Williams. They gave up a 2030 pick swap. That's kind of a big deal, but they flipped Grant Williams for PJ Washington. So turned a miss and a player into PJ. The extension for Tim Hardaway Jr. going all the way back. Was that a miss? At least you kept the asset. You were able to flip him into Grimes. And then the Omax trade. Traded for Omax to get in the 1st round on the Dereck Lively draft. Is that a miss yet? I don't know. It's like another still like incomplete. The Klay Thompson one and the Omax one are still kind of incomplete. And you also got Rashawn Holmes in that deal for Omax. And you flipped him for Gafford. So that might be a hit right there. So even in his misses, he moves on quick when he does miss. And so to me, that's a gift. A GM that will barely miss, but when he does miss, he adjusts. JaVale McGee didn't work. All right, stretch and wave. Let's just move on. Christian Wood trade. All right, 1 year, didn't really work. Let's move on from him. Let's not sign him to a long deal and like continue this on longer than it needs to. Grant Williams, all right, didn't work. Let's trade him and flip him for PJ Washington, who has been incredibly important to this Mavericks team. Tim Hardaway Jr., all right, we extended him. Let's flip him and move this contract and bring in somebody younger and better in lots of ways. Rashawn Holmes brought him in and took on his contract. Let's flip him for Gafford. Let's use that contract that we got and flip him for something better. Barely misses, moves on quick when he does. Nico Harrison has been a gift and has given a gift to the Dallas Mavericks and to Dallas Mavericks fans. Coming up, Jason Kidd. I think is a gift for the Dallas Mavericks and for fans. I know that might be a surprise coming from me. I'll tell you why coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your first purchase. I love using Game Time because you can go see what is available in your area. We've got all kinds of fun things. There's going to be a Commanders-Cowboys game, TBD on the date and the time, I guess, right now, and it starts at $11. It's kind of wild. $11 to go to a Cowboy game? It costs more to park. Costs more to drive there in gas for some people in DFW. All kinds of other things you can check out. And I love using the all-in feature. You turn on the all-in feature, you can see exactly what you're going to pay at checkout. They also have Rangers games on here already. Wow, April 19th, 2025. That is coming up quicker than you think. $49 to go to Dodgers Rangers. All kinds of stuff on Game Time. See what is available for you in your area. Use the all-in pricing and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use that code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's Game Time. Also brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money has helped me in a bunch of different ways. I was in a spot where my finances were just flying all over the place and I had all this money leaving. I had subscriptions I didn't realize and didn't know about. And I was just trying to all right, as long as the checking account number is positive at the end of the month, I'm good. And then I started Rocket Money and I really learned how to budget. I learned how to, it sorts all of your finances for you. I've loved using Rocket Money. It also helped me to lower one of my subscriptions that was very helpful for me. It calls the company and it works down it worked my bill down for me and I didn't even have to do anything for it. So it's a personal finance app that helps you cancel your unwanted subscriptions and to sometimes lower them like it did for me. Check it out. They save members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is, huh? Anybody?
It's game day, Derek. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. We have a daily show for you all throughout the week. We also do every single post game. Slightly and I will be on post games. Isaac will have one more things for you. We have a bunch of different ways you can follow and subscribe to the show. We're on YouTube, all the podcast platforms. We're on KFAA 430 every day. This show, man, from where we started it. Here's a gift. You've given me a gift. If you're listening to this show, I don't care if it's your first time or I had somebody come up to me at the game the other day and said that this is their sixth. They've been listening since 2016. That's before Isaac and I even started. And if you've been listening to this show that long or just this is your first time, thank you, because man, this show has grown so much. This network has grown so much. I've gotten to be a part of it. I say at the beginning of the show, I'm the channel manager for the NBA channel, and so I manage all the other NBA shows, and I get to see how we've grown and all that. And just to go from just this show itself, to go from just audio and Isaac and I just doing it on the side, and now it's become a full-time thing for me, and it just is incredible to see how many people we've brought in and how many people are part of this, what we call the Raccoon Squad, our listeners. Thank you. Appreciate you. You've given me a gift in these. This is my 8th year doing this show. You've all given me a gift. Thank you. The Mavericks have a gift. We're going through gifts that the Mavericks have. I think their coach, it's a gift to have a coach that is, here's a couple things, capable of going to the finals, right? That's been proven. He's also willing to adapt, change, and try new things. I know this is not like I know this is not popular with a lot of people, but to me, I think his track record has spoken for itself now. I thought there were times last year where I was like, all right, is it time to try a different coach and all that? At least they're not where the Suns are right now. Look at where the Suns are. I saw big conversation. I'm using the Suns as a lot of an example. The Suns are having this whole conversation about when are we going to start blaming the coaches? All right, this is their third coach with this group. Jason Kidd has the trust of the stars. That's a hard thing to do. Not everybody gets that. He has the trust of the stars. They've been to a 2022 West Finals. The team was not favored to go to the West Finals. They were not favored against the Suns. They were favored against the Jazz, I believe. Yeah. But they weren't favored against the Suns in the second round. They got there. The 2024 Finals, Dallas was not favored against OKC or Minnesota. Team that can win when they're not favored. Rise above. And the Mavericks right now, they have a 65.5% winning percentage. That's their best record. If they continue on this pace, it would be their best record as a team so far. It's going up, up, and up, and up. Jason is also willing to adapt and try new things and change. Here's some examples. All right, I went back through and I started trying to think of all the different things. Here's just a couple of examples. There's probably more. 2 years ago, he started JaVale McGee the first 8 games of the season. And this was, there's rumors that he was the one that wanted to bring in JaVale. And he pivoted like 8 games in. It didn't even take long. He's like, all right, even if that was his choice, let's say with the understanding, let's say that it was his choice. He wanted to bring him in. He told Nico Harrison, got to go get that guy. Pay whatever it takes. Give him a player option, all the weird stuff in that contract. We were like, it took that to get JaVale McGee. Imagine that all had to happen. He pivoted 8 games in from his guy. I think that he's willing to adapt, try, and change. This year, he started Gafford to start the year, and then he pivoted to Lively. And now the Mavs had the best starting 5, or the best 5-man unit in the NBA. He started to play Jaden Hardy in the West Finals last year, and that was helpful. Tim Hardaway Jr. was not playing in the playoffs, and then played in Game 2 versus OKC, went off, and was one of the reasons why they won that game. And Jason Kidd, was cleared to Tim Hardaway. He was not going to play very much, but then when he did, his number was called, and he stepped up for him. The Mavs last year, they wanted to add transition offense, and he got the team to buy into that. The Mavericks had played slow for every year of the Luka era. 30th, 28th, 29th in the NBA in pace. They're always super slow. And then all of a sudden, Jason Kidd was like, all right, we're going to focus, and we're going to push. And they were like 8th in the NBA last year in pace. Wild. He adapted, he changed, he tried new things. He got the team to buy in. He's getting Luka to play off the ball this year. Luka, highest usage ever. Luka, the face of heliocentrism in the NBA, and has a lower usage rate than he's had since his rookie year this season. He's getting Luka to play off ball. PJ Washington, he's getting him to post up and to push the ball in transition, getting him to try new things, getting the Mavericks to try different things. You have Luka and Kyrie. And Klay. Why would you ever want PJ Washington and to handle the ball or to do these things? Jason Kidd is trying new things, adapting to what the defense has given him. The Dereck Lively dribble handoffs. You've got this center that all he does is set picks and roll. But all of a sudden you see this ability of Dereck Lively to pass out of the short roll and to make really good decisions. So he's making Dereck Lively make decisions all the time in the offense now. Giving him the ball. Dribble handoff. All right, take this, give it to the right guy. He's sometimes Dereck Lively is the fulcrum of the Mavericks offense. Set up by the coaching staff. And then he hasn't closed with Klay Thompson this year. That can be a hard thing. We know Jason Kidd values vets. Klay Thompson, multiple championships and all that. He's averaging 6.6 minutes in the fourth quarter. 5.3 minutes per game in the fourth quarter in the last 15 games. It's going down. He's not closing games with Klay Thompson. That's adapting. That's changing. That's willing to try new things. I'll take that as a win. And I think that's a gift the Dallas Mavericks have been given. The Mavericks rotation, I think, is also a gift, and I think is also a win for them and for Mavs fans, because when's the last time you had a roster that checked all these boxes? Defenders, shot creators and shooters, scorers, bigs, vets. You've got all the things. 2 centers that can play. There was a tweet where a Pistons fan quote tweeted this Dereck Lively highlight reel where a Mavs account was posted this Dereck Lively highlight reel of all these different things, and I think the account said something like, "This is, look what Dereck Lively's doing," and the Pistons fan quote tweeted and said, "This is legit the most center SHIT I've ever seen. Mavs fans are in poverty if they are gassing this." Listen, how many centers have the Mavericks had to go through to get to just a regular center, right? To get to a regular above average, league average center. And I know Lively is better than that. You don't have to, but still, just to get to that point, right? Like, it's a gift to have 2 centers that can do those things, to just do regular center things, like even if that's the highest it goes. Mavs have a top 5 player. It's undisputed. You could say top 3 with Jokic and Giannis. You could say top 2. Some will say top 1. They have a top 25 player in Kyrie. I don't think that's disputable right now. He may be even top 20. They have top-level, desirable role players. Lively, PJ Washington, Najee, Klay Thompson, Daniel Gafford. They have a starting 5 that dominates. Luka, Kyrie, Klay, PJ, and Lively have now played 13 games together. They played 114 minutes. There's only like 36 lineups that have played 100 minutes. So that's a pretty good sample size at this point in the NBA. They have the highest net rating of those 36 lineups that have played the most. They outscore teams by 25.2 points per 100 possessions. They are dominating in their minutes. 130 offensive rating, 104 defensive rating. Insane. That group has been so awesome together. So great. And they've only started 6 games together. They've not even cracked the surface yet as far as time and chemistry and all that. You got a full rotation. I think that's a gift. And here's the last one. What's the Mavs' biggest question mark in their rotation right now? What's everyone want to trade for? A backup 4. Oh, a backup 4. The 10th man. The Maxi Kleba, Omax Prosper spot. The Exum Hardy. Like the 10th man and a backup 4 is the biggest question mark for the Mavs rotation. You could also say role player consistency. That's a question mark for everybody. Maybe the Celtics. The only team that could say, hey, we get consistency from our role players, right? If the biggest question mark for your team is the 10th man, a backup 4, or role player consistency, all right. You're sitting in a good spot. You really are. It's a gift. Gift the Dallas Mavericks have. They've given to Mavs fans. Coming up. The West is weaker than we thought. It is. I started going through it, and there are clear holes and issues with pretty much every team in the West. Talk about where the Mavs stand and more coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds, things that you can use to get in on the action. It's Christmas Day game. Mavs are favored by 5.5 against the Timberwolves. Mavs home seem to be healthy. Pretty much everybody's expected to play. I think Luka was probable last time I checked, so you can go see that. The Mavs, they're tied now with the Knicks for championship winner. Celtics plus 200, Thunder plus 390, Mavericks plus 1300, Knicks plus 1300, Cavs plus 1400, Nuggets plus 1600. So there's a big gap between the Thunder and the Mavs as far as championship, but Mavs are in the top 3. I'll count it. Give them credit. Check out FanDuel, and right now you can put down $5, and if that's your first bet, you get $250 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. Check out FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is, huh? Anybody?
All right, Isaac, let's finish up talking about the gifts the Dallas Mavericks have. I think the West is weaker than we thought. They have a lot of teams that are 500 or above, right? There's, 11 teams that are at 500 or above right now. The East only has 8. But you look at these teams. Let's go down the row. I'm going to go through them. What about this team? What about this team? What about this team? OKC, still good. They're still good, but we still have to see how good they can be with Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein. That's something I'm still waiting for, so I'm not going to make a huge statement on them and say, we know exactly how good they are. We don't. I'm not going to go there yet. But the Mavs have beaten them before, so we'll see. That's to be determined. They're still good, though. Great. A great team. 23-5. Come on. The Rockets are number 2 in the West. They're 20-9. They're unproven. I'm just going to go through all the issues on these teams for the rest of these. And so if someone's going to be like, all he did was crap on all the West teams. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's like what I'm doing right now. I'm poking holes in all these teams. You can poke holes in the Mavs, sure. Houston, unproven. They're young. They're an unproven team. They've got a lot of young players that are playing in their rotation. A lot of inconsistency there. They're 25th in half-court offense, meaning when the defense gets set, you're not in transition offense. The defense gets set, you have to run plays and sets, and everything slows down. They're 25th. They're worse than Utah, the Raptors, and the Pistons in half-court offense. Worse. Which is like an amazing thing about their transition offense and their defense. That says a lot. They play the least amount of half-court plays in the NBA. 75%. That means 25% of their plays are in transition. Wild. Last year, the final 8 teams, so the teams in the semifinals, so that won one playoff series, this is where they ranked in half-court offense. You ready for this? Remember, the Rockets are 25th. And remember this number for later because I'll bring this up a couple more times. The Celtics were 1st. The Mavericks were 8th. Timberwolves 12th. It's kind of low. Pacers 3rd. Thunder 2nd. Denver 6th. And then Cleveland and New York were 18th and 16th. East teams. But still, you kind of have to be close to top 10 in half-court offense to make it. And they're 20th. The Rockets are 25th. So move on from them. The Grizzlies, they're winning with their depth right now. They're 20-10. They're doing really well. They've had some injuries and all that. I think they only have one good win. They won against Denver when Jokic wasn't playing, so don't count that one. They have a win against Boston when pretty much everybody was healthy. It's a good win for them. I think all their other wins have not been that good. They're 8-7 against teams above 500. That's the worst record among any of the teams in the playoffs for the West right now. They're 4-7 in clutch games too, so that's something to watch. And they're themselves 16th in half-court offense. They've relied a lot on their transition play. 16th is not as bad as 25th, but still. The Nuggets, right under the Mavs. They're 16-11. Jamal Murray, he's up and down. I don't know what to expect from him. Listening to some Nuggets fans, it's like this man doesn't belong in the NBA sometimes. And then I do Locked On NBA Game Night the other night, and he goes off in a game, and they win. And they win late because Jamal Murray was going crazy. So maybe he can turn it on, but he's just been so inconsistent and has not been an all-star level player next to Jokic. And they've also struggled against mediocre teams. Look at all their examples of these. They've had to go to overtime or really late in clutch against these bad teams. And they've already got trade rumors. Michael Porter Jr. was addressing the trade rumors from the presser the other day and saying, they've told me that they don't want to trade me. And oh my gosh, that is not the mark of like a really great team. They're already doing the trade rumor thing. Zach LaVine, whoever else they've been connected to, Jimmy Butler, I don't know. There's some issues there. Jokic obviously is great, but there's some issues there. Clippers, is Kawhi ever going to be healthy? I don't know. And what should we expect from him? They've been really good, but they're 8-12 against teams above 500. I guess that's the worst record because they are 6th in the West. But still, they're not good against good teams. And they're 21st in half-court offense. So they can't score when it comes down to it really either. The Lakers, they have tons of issues. They're 7th. They're 16-13 right now. LeBron and AD, when they play together, they're getting outscored by 1.5 points per 100 possessions. And that's in 1,300 possessions. That's a big sample size right now. And they're getting outscored. Like, they're not winning the minutes when LeBron and AD are on the floor. So call that, advanced stats. They're just not winning those minutes. So that's a bad sign. They're 6-11 against teams above 500 too. Not great. The Warriors, they have all kinds of issues. They're 3-7 in their past 10 games. They're 20th ranked in total offense, not even just half court, but total offense. And they're 9-12 against teams above 500. Go down to Minnesota. Let's skip to them. They're 8-10 against teams above 500. They're not good either. 20th in half-court offense. They were 12th last year. They're 20th now. They've gotten worse when they did the Randle trade. They've got this drama with Julius Randle. They're getting outscored in the minutes that Randle plays. They're also weirdly 11.5 points per 100 possessions worse when Jaden McDaniels plays, which is kind of weird to me. Can't really dive into that. I have to ask Ben Beacon of Locked On Wolves about that. They also have this lineup. Their second most used lineup is Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, Jaden McDaniels, and Dante DiVincenzo. It's played 153 minutes, so it's played more, or it's 153. They've played more time than the Mavs starting five that we talked about earlier, and they're minus 20.5. They've gotten outscored by 20.5 points. Wild. So a gift for the Mavericks is the Western Conference is weaker. There's a lot of holes. There's not like a couple of elite teams. There's one. It's the Thunder. And then there's holes in all the other ones where they're not good against teams above 500. They're just beating up the weaker teams and all that. You'll take it. You'll take the gifts that are given to you. Hope everybody enjoys their holidays. Hope everyone enjoys the Christmas Day game for the Mavericks. We'll have a post game with me and Slightly. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. Peace out.